Hey, what is up, guys? It is Limited Llama back with another MLB Sorare video. In this game, I'm going to be going over some additional advanced tips and tricks to help you max out your Sorare team and get some really solid players and teach you how to play the best players during your games. So, I have basically three main tips that I'm going to go over in this video. So the first one is about buying players. Now, there's a lot of different tips that kind of encompass this one main tip, but the website that I'm going to be using for all these tips is www.soraredata.com. And this website holds historical data about every player card that has been sold in Sorare. So you can see I have Aaron Judge pulled up here, and it lists all the times that Aaron Judge cards have been sold. It lists his average, 3-day average. He's been sold for $300 over the past 3 days. It lists 7-day averages, 14-day averages, 30-day averages. So this is the website that I'm going to be using to go through most of these tips with. If you haven't checked it out, go to soraredata.com, and then you can make a free account, and you'll even be able to hook it up to your account, which will allow you to see all of your cards, which you have to click baseball first. And then you can see all of your cards here, how much they're worth, things like that. So this is the website that I would recommend using. It's super helpful, and it gives you a good idea of how much a player has been going for in the past few days. So the main thing using Sorare data, you really don't want to buy cards when they're way over the average price. So when you go and you want to upgrade your lineup and you deposit some money or you sell a player, you want to first go to soraredata.com and see how much the average that player has been going for. So let's look at Paul Goldschmidt, for example. He's been going for $81.76 on average over the past 3 days. You can see he spiked about a week ago, and then he's been going down ever since. So now let's go over to Sorare data, and let's see how much he's going for on the secondary market. So if we pull up Paul Goldschmidt, lowest price, so he's going for $91.92, which is about $10 over average. So you can make the decision for yourself whether or not it's worth it to pay $91 right now, which is above average, or the other option is that you can wait for a new card to come on the primary market and then see how much that will go for. So you can sort this by Paul Goldschmidt and see when he's ending soon. So the next Paul Goldschmidt is ending in 6 hours and 50 minutes, and they're currently going for $74, which is a little bit below average, but you have to remember that that's probably going to go up over time. So you can look, and the pink spots here, those are the public offers, so like the secondary market, and then the blue spots, those are the auction prices. So I wouldn't recommend buying players if they're going like 20 to 30% or more over the average price from Sorare data, but I found that typically you are going to have to pay a little bit of a premium, 5 to 10%, if you want the card right away. Now, that kind of moves me into my next tip, which is you really want to be patient when you're going to upgrade your lineup. And this is something that I haven't done a great job with, but the more time you have, the better deals you're going to be able to get on the players. So if you give yourself, 3 or 4 days and you have a set group of players that you want to buy, you can check back every couple hours or twice a day, and you can see how much they're going for. And then when you find a good price, right, you can snag them up then, as opposed to just buying the cheapest player or the cheapest card right now. So giving yourself more time will let you see more offers and even potentially participate in some of the primary market auctions. So these ones, right, this ends in 6 hours and 50 minutes. So if you really want this card and you have some time, you can set a timer for 6 hours and 50 minutes from now, and then you can come on and see how much Paul Goldschmidt is going for and potentially bid on that and then get him cheaper than you would have on the secondary market. So I would recommend being patient and giving yourself a lot of time. I know I haven't done that super well in the past. I didn't realize this past competition that every card was going to have to be limited, so I just got on and bought 4 new cards and ended up having to pay an extra 10 to 20% because I wanted them right now, as opposed to having some patience in that. So that's a good way to save some money on the cards that you're buying. The next thing, this one kind of goes along with one of my later tips, but you really want to consider the player level specifically when you're buying from the secondary market. So when you're buying from the primary market, every player is just going to have the default 5% added for limiteds, 15% for rare cards. But when you're buying it from the secondary market, these players actually have different levels. So if we go back to Paul Goldschmidt, right, you can see this player has a plus 5% bonus. That means that he's level 1 or level 0, I guess, and he has the flat 5% bonus. This player, however, is level 3, and that means that they have a 6.5% bonus compared to this player's 5% bonus. So by paying an extra, what is this, 15 cents, you get an extra 1.5% bonus on every point that Paul Goldschmidt gets. So this is really a great deal. If you were coming in here and buying Paul Goldschmidt, it's obvious that you would want to buy this $92 card because he already has leveled up to level 3, and that's giving you an extra 1.5% on every point that Paul Goldschmidt gets. Now, sometimes it's not quite as clear. If there's like, a $5 difference or a 10% difference in price, you might not want to pay that premium for the extra percent in player level. But that is something that you want to look out for. You can always see what level the player is by either clicking it, it'll show you right here, or you can look at the bonus right here. So always be on the lookout for that. And I'll discuss player level in my third tip. So if you want to hear more about that, continue watching. And the last thing is that you always want to look at the secondary market before you start bidding on something on the primary market. This is a mistake that I made when I started out. I would bid on stuff on the primary market, and then I would go to the secondary market and realize that their cards there are actually cheaper than how much I just bid on the primary market. So you always want to make sure that you aren't overpaying for a card, right? So Jock Peterson, right, he's going for $1.69 on the primary market. You can go over and you can look at the secondary market and see how much he's going for. Jock Peterson. And then sort of by lowest price, right, he's going for $2.77. So it's reasonable to bid on him on the primary market because the current going price is less than the secondary market. But it's important that you aren't overpaying for something on the primary market when you can just get it for cheaper on the secondary market. So always be checking the secondary market if you're going to bid on something from the primary market. So those are my main tips about buying cards. Again, use soraredata.com. If you have any other tips, feel free to put them in the comments down below. But I think these are a great way to make sure that you're getting good deals and good value from your purchases. The second tip is that you really want to know which teams are good and which teams are bad. And a lot of this just comes from, watching baseball, paying attention, playing Sorare. Over time, you'll start to know which teams are good and which teams are bad. But there's a lot of advantages from knowing which teams are good and which teams are bad. For one, you'll be able to buy players from teams which are good. And this gives you a lot of advantages. You have additional runs, you have additional RBIs, and you have additional chances to get wins and saves if your player plays on a team that is good. The other reason why you want to know which teams are good and which teams are bad is for when you're choosing your lineups. If you have two players who are about the same skill level, and one of them's playing against a really good team and one of them's playing against a bad team, you're obviously going to want to play the one that's playing against the bad team because they have a higher likelihood of getting more points. So knowing which teams are good and which are bad helps you to plan your lineups, and it also helps you purchasing players. And obviously, all the time, you can just go to MLB.com. You can click the standings button right here, and this will show you every team and how they're doing, and you can see how they are in their division, and then their win percentage right here. And this, obviously, you can always go over here and check if you have any questions, but being able to know just on the top of your head which teams are good definitely helps being able to quickly put lineups together without having to check MLB.com. So that's a great thing to learn, and it just kind of comes with practice, watching and listening to baseball. So the final tip, again, it has to do with leveling. Now, leveling is kind of a more advanced concept in Sorare MLB, but the basics of it are this, that every player, every card in Sorare MLB has a level. And the higher the level, the more points that player gets. So every level over 0 gives an additional bonus to the points that player gets. If you want to understand more about this, you can click the How to Play button on Sorare, and then you can click Advanced Concepts, and then you can click both training and card level and bonus. So this card level and bonus gives a basic idea of how the bonuses work in Sorare MLB, right? Limited cards, they give you a 0% bonus, rare cards a 10%, super rare 20%, unique cards give a 40%. And then cards also get a 5% bonus in the current season. So as you're putting your lineups together, right, it's important that you add any extra players that you have into what is called the training lineup. So, right, you can, if you're creating a limited team, a limited pro team, your common team, right, create those first. And then if you have extra players, you can put them all in this training team. And the nice thing is that you can make as many training teams as you want. So if you have 100 players, right, you can create 20 training teams, and every player on those training teams is then going to get XP for that week. If your player isn't in a team, they aren't going to get XP for that week, and they won't be leveling up, which won't give you the extra points that you need. So in this current week, I have 3 teams set up, but then I also have 2 training teams. And this is to make sure that all of these players are getting points for the week. And a quick aside about how card leveling works. Every player gets a base 75 XP for playing in a week. And they also get XP based on how well that team does. So they get your 75 base plus the total score of the team multiplied by 0.125. So, for example, this team, let's go over to one of my teams that actually has some points, right? This team, we're at 15 points. So every player on this team is going to get 75 XP points plus 15 times 0.125 is 1.875. So they'll get the 75 plus 1.875 points. Except the one thing to note is that only players who are limited and above actually have XP. So none of these common players, right, you go over to their cards, they don't actually have XP. So the only players that can gain XP are your limited players, so limited and above. So even though there's no real need to have a bunch of training teams of just common players, but if you do have limited players, obviously you want those to be in training teams so that they're getting that base 75 XP every week. And the important thing to note about leveling up is that the XP required to level up gets harder and harder to level up. So your first level, you only need 100 XP. Second level, you need 200, 400, 600, 900, 1300, 1800, 2400. So you can see, getting to level 20, you need 24,000 XP, which is a lot. But, you can level your player up to level 3 or level 4 pretty quickly by just playing them in 3 or 4 competitions. So that's why it's super important to always have a player playing every single week. Specifically, you can use your training teams to do that. So that's the basics around leveling. You can obviously read the article on Sorare MLB, the wiki page, and I recommend learning more about that and considering your player level as you're buying cards. So those are my main advanced tips for this video. I made a previous video also discussing advanced tips. I'll post the link to that in the description, or it should be up here if you want to check it out. I'll be making more videos about Sorare, so if you enjoyed this, please feel free to subscribe. I post weekly updates about how my teams are doing, and then I also make videos about this, kind of going through some of the advanced tips and tricks about Sorare. So if you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe and click that like button below. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.